Welcome to 'Cause We're Nerds, the podcast that covers trends and new releases in comics, movies, video games, board games, and much more. I'm your host Caleb, and with me is my cousin Zach.
I'm back, baby.
Google's entering the video game market with Stadia, their cloud-based service. Does this shift signal the end of the console as we know it? Find out on this week's episode of 'Cause We're Nerds.
Okay, so when everybody talks about the cloud, I always think of Creed the movie. Have you seen it?
No, the Rocky movie?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so in it, there's a clip where Creed, so one of the boxers, he's talking to Rocky, who is now quite a bit older, and Creed takes a picture of Rocky, and then Rocky's basically like, okay, here, let me email it to you, and Creed's like, oh no, man, it's in the cloud. And then he just walks away, and Rocky's like, "But wait, don't you need?" Oh, and then Rocky just like looks up into the sky, like, "What?" He just doesn't get it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that before. Oh, the cloud, man! What is it? Why is it here? And what does it want with us? These are all questions that
probably need answers, and will we answer them? Probably not.
Oh man. So, before we jump in too far, I have been struggling with the allergies because it's decided to bloom, even though it's still been very cold. So,
as well as an insane cocaine addiction. But we're going to be talking about his allergies instead.
Right. So, if I start just hacking my throat out, then please jump in and say something, Zach.
That's the cocaine, not his allergies.
Right.
Those just make his eyes water.
Okay. So we're talking about Stadia today. Zach, before I give the explanation of what it is, did you actually get to check this out? Do you know anything about this?
Oh yeah. I mean, I saw it when it launched, when it shook the interwebs. So yes.
Okay, cool. So for those of you that don't know, Stadia is Google's play at the video game market. Typically, with video games, you buy a console, like an Xbox or a PS4.
Gaming PC.
Or gaming PC, something like that. Some kind of box that actually runs your games. You purchase your games, and you play your games on that box. And then, of course, you've got online multiplayer, where you play with other people who have their own boxes. Stadia is different. Basically, Stadia takes all of those consoles that you would have bought and it puts them together in Google's data centers, and the game is actually played on those data centers, and you play it on pretty much any Chrome-enabled device. So you open up Chrome on your computer,
tablet, phone, yep. TV connected to the internet.
Yeah, any of those things. And so what it does is it allows you to play games on devices that wouldn't be able to play those games themselves. Like if you try to run Assassin's Creed on your phone, it's not going to work. It doesn't have the computing power. But they're streaming it to you from their servers. So you could almost think of it a little bit like Netflix, where Netflix has all the stuff and it just comes to your devices.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. That's how I've been thinking about it.
So what do you think of this, Zach? I mean, I speculate a lot about the future of video games at work with some buddies, and I feel like the writing has just been on the wall for something like this. Everything else has moved towards this type of model. I mean, Netflix obviously is a big one, but you've even got other things like what's Amazon's book thing? I can't remember what Audible. Audible is like this. It's Hulu. I mean, everything is moving towards this. Even like Marvel and comics with their digital subscriptions, where you don't actually own a physical thing anymore. So what is your stance on this?
Yeah, so the other day, Michaela came home with a bunch of Disney DVDs. And I swear this is applicable, so just stick with me. And I'm like, oh, where'd you grab those? Like, for free? And she's like, actually, yes. And I'm like, score. Anyways, basically, her IT guy at school was just giving away his DVDs because he has completely switched to a digital platform. And I was like, that's a classic IT guy move, because as everybody's still stuck in the Stone Age, usually individuals who love IT or technology, you know, your typical IT guys, they're thinking one step ahead. And so everything, you're right, is shifting cloud-based, cloud storage, and away from physicality, right? And so, I mean, if you just think about it, back when we were kids, Caleb, we had the VHS.
Yes, the mighty VHS. How ye have fallen.
Kids today don't understand the struggle of everything.
Yeah, it's a VHS player, not a VCR.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. Anyways, right. So we went from that to DVDs, but now I would say everything's becoming digital. I mean, with, Prime to Netflix to Disney Plus to other streaming services, we're going to get pretty soon. You're going to be able to get every content, digitally. So you're not going to need a DVD player, a Blu-ray player. I mean, I would say now if you have a gaming console, you really don't need that anyways, because it's already linked up to the gaming console, which wasn't the case 10 years ago. You had to have a Blu-ray player to play your Blu-rays and a console to play your games. Well, now it's the case. PS4 has a Blu-ray player. Xbox One has a Blu-ray player. Switch doesn't, but
it doesn't use discs. Those are in the past.
But it doesn't even use discs, right? So everything is going digitally. Now, when you look at games are mirroring content that you just talked about, Caleb, right? So, you talked about movies, you talked about books. That's the same thing that's happening to games. You look at what's happening. I think Xbox has an Xbox Pass where they have hundreds and hundreds of games where it's a subscription service. It's literally like Netflix. I don't know if you saw this, Caleb, today. Apple has recently announced that they're basically launching that same service, where you can get at least hundreds of games. If you subscribe to Apple, you get hundreds of games that you can play and download. I mean, it's basically like a Steam, right?
Is it like app games? Or I know they had a conference today. I was trying to watch it and then work fell apart, so I didn't get to.
Yeah, no, I just read the article, so I'm not sure. I just saw that they announced it, so I'm not sure exactly if it's app games or what this. I'm assuming it's like Steam though. Like I think you're supposed to be able to go on any platform and play it.
Okay.
And so games are going digitally. I would expect you look at the sales too, that sales of discs are decreasing and digital platforms are, like increasing. You can even look at stores like GameStop, like they're not doing so well. And so even like the store, like they're, what they're having to do is now, if you walk into a GameStop, usually they have to sell comics. They're selling shirts. They're coming more of a
collectibles and stuff.
Yes, collectibles, right? Because they can't just survive on physical copies because that's going to go down the drain. Now I think it's going to be slow. I mean, there's still people with VHS players, VCRs, whatever. There's still people playing VHS tapes. And they haven't even made the switch over to DVDs. So, I mean, it's going to take a long time. I still like my physical copies over my digital copies, and that's just me because I want to bring a game over to like a friend's house if that's the case. But I think pretty soon everything is going to be digital, which paves the way and makes sense for Google's Stadia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like for the longest time, I resisted the digital push in terms of owning things. Like Netflix, cool. But when I own something, I want to own it. And gradually over time, I've gotten more and more aware it's like digital, no problem. Like if I see a sale on the store, cool. It's even gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I'm playing a game. I'm done playing this game. I want to switch it out. Ugh, the game I want to play is a disc. I have to get up and switch it out.
That's true. No, that's true. It's way more convenient to buy digital because you don't have to have that physical disc. It doesn't take any space in your home. Like you just said, Caleb, you can just switch it. You don't have to go out and buy it at a store. You just buy it online. Super convenient.
So the thing with Stadia is at launch, it's supported on things that can run Chrome. So any computer, any tablet, pretty much any phone.
Wait. Can I play on my smartwatch?
Ooh, do you have a browser on your watch?
Kind of?
I don't. Doesn't it just like take snippets? It's not like a real browser. Surely not.
True.
No.
But like, I'm sure pretty soon, I'm sure there is a smartwatch out there with a browser. And if not, they will have browsers pretty soon.
Well, so when they announced it, they actually specifically said laptops, desktops, TVs, tablets, and phones.
And we're going to throw in smartwatches.
Yeah, so anything that can basically run Chrome, but they did say that they have plans to
for
over time. Right, for smartwatches, so that you can play it on the
yeah,
go.
That's right.
To add other browsers and other platforms on there, which makes me think, okay, probably Firefox, maybe Edge or Internet Explorer might be added, some other consoles. So what we're seeing really is not just an expanding of the platforms that you can play this game on. But I also think that ultimately there are going to be apps for this thing on other consoles as well, like the Switch or the PS4, the Xbox, because those companies have already been making steps to expand themselves. I know Xbox recently has started making deals with Nintendo to where I think the Game Pass or Xbox Live, something is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo is doing some partnerships elsewhere as well. So they're trying to partner together more than they have in the past. And I think that things like this is going to expand that to a greater extent than it already is now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Google's now in the market. Competition is going to breed a healthy market. However, I think when you look at Google's Stadia, I think there's kind of two major issues I see with it. I mean, I think that the move to, just digital is already happening, and Stadia is just moving that direction with the gaming industry in general. However, I think, will it be a competitor? Are there concerns about it? Yes, because of two huge issues. And the first, I think, is just considering Google itself. Google is a great company, but they're also known for, I would probably say wisely, but I would say wisely, but wisely ditching products that don't work. Mm-hmm. And so that can be anything from Google Plus to
their messaging app. I think it was called Allo.
Their messaging app, to Google Glass. Just a bunch of, they'll try it out. If it doesn't work, they'll switch. And so part of me is hesitant that I could see Stadia being that, hey, we're going to try to get into the gaming industry because it makes billions of dollars. The gaming industry made more than Hollywood made this past year. And so I could see them trying to get into that and then it not really working and kind of leaving after a while.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that complaint. And I guess for me, whether or not that is going to be a big part of me deciding to do this is going to be what the game model looks like. Because they talked about the platform. They didn't really talk anything about how games are handled, at least not what I have seen. So I don't know if this is Netflix style, where you pay a subscription fee and you can play any game on there, or if you're still going to have to purchase each game you play. If it's more of that subscription model, I'm not really going to be upset if, a year or 2 years down the line, they say, you know what, this didn't really work, we're not going to do it anymore. However, if I pay money for each individual game, I'm going to be very upset if that goes away.
Yep. Yeah, exactly, right? Because you have physically bought it versus that subscription service.
Yeah, and it's
different.
Not
physically, but you own it. Yeah, it's different.
Right. Yeah, and so if that's the case, then I will probably, I might try it for one game or something, but I'm mostly going to avoid it. But that being said, I really doubt that that's the model they're going to go with. Just this entire thing screams subscription service. Everything is going subscription anyway. Why would you not build this to be subscription as well?
Well, and then you're making more money too, in the long run. But Caleb, I'm going to go back to something you said. You talked about the platform. And I think that's where I have that kind of second big question about this is I think there are a lot of unanswered questions, which is fine because they just had one announcement, that was it. But I think there's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to Stadia. For example, I think the biggest one is how will it actually work when you're looking at, and I'm just going to take the United States, for example, United States and the wide array of internet speeds that you get everywhere. And I know they're trying to claim that they can run, I think 4K at 30 DPS maybe. But you mean, or not you mean, megabits per second? Yes.
Okay.
But it's still, there's still a bunch of questions. For example, if you're watching Netflix and it lags, it just lags, right? If you are playing, on your Xbox or PS4 and you're playing an online game and it lags, okay, that sucks, but usually your content's still saved. Usually you can just go back to playing the game, whatever. And that never happens on a single player game. That's like Assassin's Creed. They said they tried Stadia on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right? So you're playing a single player game. There's not going to be any lag. Okay, well, let's say you're playing here and all of a sudden your internet cuts out. Did you just lose all that data? Did you Like, does it save every second? Do you have to manually save? So then, because it lagged for 1 second, which can happen, where's your data go? Is this going to be an issue when internet companies throttle you? When you have various download and upload speeds? Like, I just feel there's a lot of questions that are very, very vague. And I'm assuming Google doesn't really know the answer themselves.
So I actually talked about this a lot with my friend at work today. And I think there's a couple things that play into this. In terms of your question about will it save or not, I think everything is definitely saved in the cloud. And my big piece of evidence for this is the fact that you can play on one device and then pick up a different device and continue exactly where you left off playing. That would not be possible unless they were saving everything in their cloud. So right there, right off the bat, I don't think that's going to be an issue. What I do think could potentially be an issue is the internet speeds. This is something that has been a big preventing factor of this type of technology in the past. And I think we're at a good place to do it, though, and here's why. I was speaking with my friend today about this and arguing about why this will work. And essentially, the way it will work is exactly the same as online multiplayer. If you can play online multiplayer lag-free, then this will work for you. Because in online multiplayer, basically, if your opponents are lagging, that sucks, right? Like, it's not a very fun gaming experience. I would argue that a lot of people stop playing if their opponents are lagging a whole lot. And it would be the same thing here. Basically, what happens in that situation is you've got an opponent with their own console. They hit a button that goes to their console. The console renders it and, takes the data, sends that input to a server. That information is sent back down to your box, your console, and it's rendered. The difference with Stadia is that you're taking the rendering and you're just moving it to a different spot. So you're still going to be sitting there. You're going to be pressing a button. It's going to go to whatever thing you're playing it on. That's going to go to the server. Then it's going to get rendered and manage your inputs, and it's going to be sent back. The loop of what happens is no different than it would be if you're playing an online multiplayer game. So, in my opinion, if you are able to run those types of games now, there should be no issue with a single-player game with Stadia. Of course, if your internet drops out, there could always be those types of issues. And, of course, there are people that can't really play multiplayer games. But those types of experiences has gotten much, much better in the last 10, but definitely 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything you say. I still think I think you're oversimplifying a few things that could go wrong. For example, you said, back to the saving port, I'm assuming that you were assuming that we're both assuming that it's like auto saving, right? But I doubt that's the case, because that just seems like a lot, right? So like if I'm playing on my TV, I would have to physically save that and then switch to my computer. And so yes, it's saved in the cloud, but let's say my internet lags out 5 seconds before I'm going to save it on my computer. I just lost the 2 hours of gameplay I had.
No. That's not going to happen. If you watched the demo, what he did was he took a device and started playing on it. He didn't save or anything. He didn't even pause the game. He picked up another device and turned it on, and it was exactly right where he left off.
Okay. Oh, Caleb.
No,
sweetie.
No saving or anything.
Oh, Caleb. Oh, little Caleb.
I want to point out
you realize that demos are 100% truth, right? Like what you see on a demo is exactly what you see. Everything at the E3 demos is everything you get when you get the game.
I want to point out that I am in the IT industry and I deal with this stuff every day, specifically the internet. The internet is my job. I have a very good working knowledge of how these things work. And I don't think it's a save in the same way that you and I think of saves now. What I think it is more akin to, what's it called? When you put your software in, when you suspend your software, like on a PS4, where you can be playing a game, you hit the home button and it suspends your game.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. Xbox has the same thing.
Yes, exactly. All modern gaming consoles do now, but that's the type of thing that I believe that it's doing. I don't think it's constantly actually saving.
I could actually see that too. I'm just thinking it would be interesting, like they're promising that now, but I just don't like. It would be like when they roll it out, like what are the specifics? So like that's what they claim in their demo, but it's just later in 5 months or X amount of months, whenever E3 is, I'd be really interested to see like as they explain more of that.
Sure, yeah, and it could totally be that we get it and it doesn't work that well, and that's always a possibility. I think the thing with Google is they've actually tested this. I don't know if you know, back in October, I think, they did a soft test of this. They weren't saying this is what we're testing, but they had people go out and play Assassin's Creed on their platform through browsers or whatever it was, and generally the consensus was pretty good. Now, of course, it could come back and be bad, but the stuff will be there. Whether or not it works as well as they're showing is always the question.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, when we're talking about Stadia, I think a lot of the basic functionality is going to be great. I just think there's a lot of the questions. And then, I mean, it even goes to like minor questions like, so how are mods affect? Can you mod a game that you buy, or are you not allowed to mod that game because it's, it's like on, let's say it's on a subscription service, or just how it works. So I think there's a lot of kind of those random questions that do come up. And I think as I'm just thinking about Stadia, I think the biggest hurdle it's going to have to come over, or leap through is the fact of, how entrenched in the gaming industry the top 4 are, right? So obviously number 1 is people who game on a gaming computer, right? All major esports go on a gaming computer. It's like, it's all, your great gaming computer. And I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't think they're ever going to be able to top people who are gaming on their computer. Just because Stadia is going to use a controller, which is, it's the basic master PC race is going to be your mouse and keyboard. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, so then when we talk about consoles, then the big 3 obviously, are going to be Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo have, first off, a huge history. So they have built a lot of accountability with their player base, and just a lot of history as well. Versus Stadia is just is new. Their controller, to me, like, I'm like, oh, this looks kind of like a knockoff controller, which there's so many controllers out there. They really couldn't have done anything better. Like that, It's a good controller. It's just, it kind of looks like a knockoff controller. And if you've ever seen those knockoff consoles, very concerned.
I do want to point out while we're talking about it, you aren't required to use their controller. You can use any controller that can connect to the device you're playing on.
Really?
Yeah, they said that. So, like,
I watched the conference, I know.
I've got a PS4 controller that I use on my PC. I could totally just pick that up and use that.
Okay, nice. Okay, well, that makes it a little bit better. Where is I going with this? I'm like, okay. So, the next thing I was gonna say, the next thing too, that will be interesting is that PS4 and Xbox are reportedly working on their new consoles. And just to see the direction that those take.
Mm-hmm. I think that if we were to go 10 years down the road, Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo might still potentially be making boxes, but I think the boxes will change. I think the boxes will basically be a streaming device, kind of like an Apple TV or a Roku.
Agreed.
With this same sort of system, with the same sort of service. So I think that's what that's moving towards. I think that Stadia as a service, like what you said, it's not meant for the PC master race. I mean, you're always going to have those people. If it's movies, you're always going to have the people that are buying Blu-rays. If it's games, you're always going to have the people that want to build their computers. If it's books, you're always going to have the people that prefer the physical book. I mean, that's always going to happen. But the masses that just want to play a little bit, just want to have a good time, this is great for them because you don't have $400 to buy into a console before you even get any games, plus $60 for any extra controllers you need. I mean, I guess you would need money for controllers for this if you're playing multiplayer, but the costs come way down. Theoretically, we don't know the pricing yet. Theoretically, the price come way down, right? And that's where I think they're trying to hit. And you're completely right that the other companies do have a trust and a history, but you have to remember, Xbox didn't launch until like 2000, 2001. It was early 2000s. It was brand new to the gaming market, and people thought it was going to fail. And look at it now. I mean, everything has to start somewhere. I'm not saying Google is going to be that, but if it doesn't try, you'll never know. I will say, though, I think people do trust Google as a brand because of everything else they've done between, obviously, the Google search engine, Google Docs and everything that ties into that.
Stealing our information on a daily
stealing
basis.
The information,
yeah.
Using it to market things to you, all the things that we love. But their suite of tools that, industry people use are fantastic. And even,
for sure.
like, especially now, consumer stuff with Google Home and Google Home Mini, stuff like that. I think that people do trust Google. I think that a regular person might go into this before a gamer right now. And I'm curious to see the way the gaming community is going to embrace this.
And that was kind of my next point. I like Google Stadia. I like what they're doing. I like the innovation they bring. I think the market that they're going to be able to impact the most is actually those who don't have a console yet, or those who are looking to upgrade. And so I think individuals who are entrenched in their consoles, who have trust maybe in Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, right? So like I have an Xbox. This is going to come out I could get Xbox Live Pass. I really have no reason to get the Google Stadia at all.
Mm-hmm.
But for individuals, this is a great, I feel like entry level, where if you don't have a console already, you could, and we don't know the price point as Caleb mentioned, but we could jump into that to test out the waters. Or if, let's say my Xbox is getting pretty old and I don't want to dish out X amount of dollars for a new Xbox or a new PlayStation, to maybe go, okay, I'll give this a try, and then fall in love with it and stick with it. So I think that's kind of who they're going to have to target. What do you think?
Yeah,
Who's their audience?
I totally agree with that. I think that the beginning audience is going to be techies who want to test it out and see how it is. Maybe the adventurous gamers, and definitely the people that either don't have a console or the people that have a Switch, because a lot of what I'm assuming AAA games they're talking about aren't on the Switch. I mean, I know they're bringing one of the Assassin's Creed over, but that's part of it. And I think that actually plays into a large caveat about this whole thing is a lot of how successful this is going to depend on their game lineup. Consoles live and die by the games that are on them, and this is not going to be any different. We know that they're going to be putting Assassin's Creed on it, but what other big games is going to be on this? Is it going to be an open market, just like the consoles are, where you can publish to all of them? Does it have to be specifically tailored for this service? If games have to be made in such a way that when they're made for this service, they can't go to other services, I don't know if it's going to take off as well. But if you're able to take, I don't know, any game, Breath of the Wild, for example, and put it on this thing pretty easily, that is a much better selling point. Again, it's the whole Netflix model, right? Take everything, like in the beginning, take all the stuff, license it, put it on your thing so that people have a one-stop shop. Ultimately, it's going to do the same thing Netflix is doing now, where things are being partitioned off into their own streaming services.
Yep.
But for launch and for the next, 3 years, I'll say, I think Stadia is going to be the main one, with the Game Pass coming in a close second.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, Caleb. I am interested if Stadia is able to make an impact in the market, if they continue with this, to see, Google has an empire. It's Google then Disney. So for them to pump a ton of money into this, and make a ton of console exclusives would be really interesting to see what they come up with and what they innovate.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to be watching very carefully about how this rolls out. There is not a launch date, although it is going live in the US and I think Europe sometime this year, with it rolling out to the rest of the world, I think next year at some point. It's very interesting, and there are still a lot of questions. Certainly the technical side, I know, like, with what you're saying, you mentioned the mods specifically. That stuff I don't think they're going to care about because, again, they're going after the console people, not the PC people. And consoles, for the most part, don't even have mods. So
Xbox does.
Xbox does, but that's a relatively new thing that launched, last year?
Yeah. No, it launched, the Fallout 4 was out, so that'd be 2 years ago.
2 years, okay. So it's still a pretty new thing. I don't know how many people use it or if that ecosystem is even good, to be honest, because I don't really play my Xbox. And if I did, I wouldn't even mess with mods, to be honest. But that's another thing. And it could be as well that this is successful enough for them to keep it, and then they make modifications so that they could bring support for some of those other things in later.
Yes.
So overall, I'm excited. I think I'm a bit more excited than you, Zach. I do have some trepidation about how it will work, but I do trust Google, and I don't think that they would have launched this publicly at this point after they've been working on it for 2+ years if they weren't very confident in it.
And they already have a list of people who they know will purchase it based on their shopping habits and what they've said
true.
Around the Google Home and
that's true.
What they've I want to say just kidding, but it's actually probably true.
It's probably true.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
But we all know it though and still use Chrome. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, Chrome is the best browser.
Yeah. Oh, who is still using Internet Explorer?
Well, if you're using Internet Explorer, you're really, really bad because Edge replaced that quite a while ago.
I know. That's actually, you know who's still using Internet Explorer?
Who?
Grandma.
Oh, well, yeah, that's not going to change.
Also, we should tell the story about the time that, was it my dad or was it you or somebody? I mean, you have in the past tried to clean our grandma's computer, and it was like 140,000 viruses.
Oh yeah,
and just moved it. It was like the worst thing ever.
You know how grandparents are; they don't know anything about computers, and just you get on there and you're like, "Grandma, why do you got 1 million files on your desktop? That's taking up memory, and then you got all these viruses and just like stuff everywhere." Or the time I opened up her email and she had
2,000.
No, it was like
30.
It was like 30,000 or something emails.
Oh, yeah, I've said 30,000 icons, and she's like, "Well, I don't know how to clear them."
No, I mean emails. She had like 30,000 unread emails. Although, to be fair, I can't say much. If I open up my phone right now, I have, and people are going to hate me for this.
No, don't say it.
35,288 unread emails.
You're the worst human ever.
Across, though, 1, 2, 3, 4 email accounts, and most of those are unread because they're spam, and I can't take the time to go through and delete them because there's too many.
You just select all delete. Select all delete.
That would delete all my work emails.
That's the best then. Jim from work's like, "Hey, did you see that important email I sent out?" And you're like, "Nope, never got it."
Man, if Jim came to me and said that, I'd be in big trouble. Oh, man. All right. But good discussion about Stadia. If you guys have questions or opinions about it, please let us know. Go to our Facebook page.
Don't ask us.
I'd really...
I was going to say don't ask us.
No!
I'm like, oh, no.
Please
let us know.
I'd really love to have a discussion about this because it's a new thing to the market, and I'm curious. So do that. But, Zach, that was that, and this is this. It's time for what you've been up to.
I did my taxes the other day, so that was...
Oh, fun. I did that a couple weeks ago. Were you shocked with how little you got back?
Shocked. No, actually, we got a lot back. Fantastic.
I'm expecting a fantastic birthday present next month then.
Happy early birthday. I might not have a birthday present. What would you do? Hypothetical question.
Hypothetically.
What would you do if you got home one day and Courtney went, "Happy birthday," and held up a baby?
I would have a lot of questions. I would have a lot of questions. Probably my very first thought would be like, all right, who brought their baby here?
Yeah.
And
she's like, "This is your son."
Then I wouldn't believe her. I would probably just give her this look like, "Are you kidding me? Like, really? I mean, come on. Obviously, this is not true."
I love it. I love it. Anyways, what have I been up to? I have been reading some comics.
Oh, nice. I haven't been reading, but I have tried to finish organizing mine because they've been laying in the floor of my room for like
which
a month.
is good. You have to do that. No, I've been reading. I might have talked about this several months ago, but I'll mention it again because that's what I've been doing. Two of them, the Avengers, the new 20. Would it be 2018
Oh, yeah.
run?
Yeah, we talked.
Yeah,
the one that had like the historical Avengers.
Yeah. I talked about it when I read the first comic. It's now 16. So
Okay.
that would have been like a long time ago. It you know what? It didn't dive much into that, which I was like a little sad about. But the new lineup of Avengers is really interesting. A new character just joined. Do you mind if I tell you?
Sure, go for it.
So it's a spoiler for, I think, Avengers 15, 16, if you read the comics. But Blade has joined the Avengers team. Yeah, which is super interesting. So the current lineup is the Holy Trinity, which you know who they are. And then Captain Marvel. They have a new Ghost Rider. I can't remember his name. It's not Johnny Blaze. It's a new one. They have She-Hulk.
Is it like Gabriel or something?
Yes, he has a car. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the She-Hulk, but she's basically the Hulk. Like it's the She-Hulk, but when she turns Hulks out, she's not smart anymore. She's like actually like really strong, like the Hulk. I hate it. And then there is Black Panther, who's the leader of the Avengers. It's not Tony Stark anymore. It's T'Challa. And then Blade just joined. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of different unique elements I like about this. They are the Avengers of the world. So there's actually a team the United States put together to protect them. And then there is some other just very interesting stuff. So like Namor has kind of come back and has wanted to reclaim the Earth and seek vengeance. So he's kind of an ongoing... Again, so he's an ongoing protagonist. They brought him back after a while. They're what I like is there's a lot of international stuff going on. So why they brought in Blade was that there's a huge vampire war in Transylvania, and it's mixed up. They've actually done a few comics on the Russian Guard. There's a name for them, but I can't remember what. It's the Russian Avengers. So it's like Major Ursa. Basically the Russian Iron Man. You've probably seen him. He's like all red, pretty bulky, kind of looks like War Machine.
So every nation has their own Avengers team?
Basically, yes.
Does that not like make the Avengers less special?
No, because they're like the world team. Because all the other teams are like pretty good, but they're the Avengers, so they're like phenomenal.
Yeah, to me that makes them less cool.
No, it's actually you'll have to read it. I'm not explaining it super well, but it's like they do a great job at it.
Okay.
And then what's super interesting is like this Russian team. There's right now an unknown Red Widow, and she, I'm assuming it's a she. I don't really know. Is like a BA. Like she can take down anybody, but she's always hooded, and so you don't know who she is. But she's like super vicious, super brutal, and I'm assuming sooner or later it's going to come to a head, where those teams have been kind of at it, but haven't been able to fight each other yet. They will, and the Red Widow is going to bring down the house.
Cool.
So the other comic I'll mention that I'm reading too that I highly suggest, it's more of a horror comic, but it's the Immortal Hulk. It's the current Hulk run. They've really brought it back, I would say. I can't remember the writer. I wish I knew his name, but he has done a fantastic job. 5 out of 5 stars. I really don't like reading the Hulk, but this reads very differently. It is more horror-esque. So think back to like the, maybe like a Swamp Thing in the 90s or 80s. I should say 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But it is really intriguing, really good. I love the storyline.
Is this back to Bruce Banner, or is it still the
so
other
Bruce
guy?
Banner's back alive.
Okay.
He died. Hawkeye shot him through the head, but he's back alive. But there's some twists and turns. They've kind of redefined the Hulk. But not in a way that's like, oh, that's dumb. In a way you're like, oh, that's really intriguing. Like for example, he is more powerful at night, and they explain that kind of because it's all wrapped up into kind of how he comes back alive again. So it's wrapped up into that, but it's really intriguing. Like the first 5 comics, he doesn't deal with any other superheroes. It's basically him going into these other towns and like dealing with other gamma radiated people or like monsters. So it's really cool. And then they bring in the Avengers, and then there's some other stuff that happens. But I am sold on this comic. It is fantastic. So I would actually recommend the Immortal Hulk over the current Avengers, but then also say get the current Avengers as well. Yep.
So I've never actually read a Hulk book. I think that the whole idea of like the gamma monsters that he fights is really interesting, but I've never gone in myself.
No, yeah. So I haven't before this run. I've read like 1 or 2, and I'm like, it's fine. It's not that great. This run is really good. The story got me. The artwork's fantastic. It's horror-esque, so they have some. It's not like super horror, but there's like just some of those elements where you're like, ooh, that's kind of brutal. And they show. So really interesting.
Awesome. Is that all you've been up to?
That's all I've been up to. Comics to get this week. But that's what I've been up to. What you been up to?
Well, since we were just talking about Avengers and the Hulk, I'll start out with The Avengers. I rewatched most of, I still got to finish it, the first Avengers movie. Nice. In preparation of Endgame. I'm watching one movie a week up till that movie, obviously the 3 Avengers movies plus Civil War. And I was actually going to mention that I was really surprised. If you remember the scene where Banner hulks out for the first time in the helicarrier.
Yep.
That is straight up horror. Like, I didn't remember it that well, but it actually fits in really well with what you're talking about that comic and how he's portrayed. Basically just a straight up monster that's going to kill you. Mm-hmm. It's actually pretty terrifying. And I've seen the movie multiple times, but
yeah, if I remember right too, it's a pretty interesting callback to the Incredible Hulk movie, because the first time he hulks out is kind of in that factory, and that's played up for horror as well. But if I remember from our podcast, check it out on the Avengers, the CGI holds up pretty well.
Yeah, so I was actually impressed. The CGI of him transforming specifically is still amazing. Once he's fully transformed, it isn't as good.
No, he gets better each movie.
Yeah, definitely. So, that was good. Goodness, my throat is starting to hurt really bad.
No!
The other thing I did, which I don't know if I really need to talk about, but I started a new sitcom. I started Frasier. Have you ever seen Frasier?
Ooh, I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
I've heard of it. Apparently it's a spinoff of Cheers, which I've never seen. If we have any older listeners, they're like, why haven't the young kids seen Cheers? Yeah, so it's got Kelsey Grammer, who played Beast in the original X-Men trilogy.
Oh, sure.
He's the lead. It's really funny. I watched the first episode, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. And then probably the best thing I've done this week. And Zach, you're going to rag on me. I watched an anime movie. If you're into anime, you've heard of this. It's a movie called Your Name. And this movie came out
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it came out like 2.5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. How was it?
It was really, really good. So, good? This is it's not like an action movie or anything. Nope. If anything, it's almost like a mystery love story, I guess you could call it. Mm-hmm. It's really good. So Courtney came out of it saying it is 100% the best anime anything she's ever seen. It might be the best movie she's ever seen.
No, the best anime?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a really good movie. I know that it gets a lot of hype. I know that a lot of people have seen it. There's probably a lot of people that hate it because of the hype it gets, but it is beautifully animated. The story is really good. It keeps you on your toes. It's very interesting. I think it's very accessible as well to people that don't watch anime. There's not really a whole lot in it that's anime specific, except for like one of the characters lives in a very small town and she does like some traditional ritual thing, like dancing ritual thing. But there's very little of that. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Courtney and I actually bought it to watch it, so I'm not sure if it's on any streaming services, but it would be worth a buy just to watch it.
I just Googled best anime movie. You know what was the first one that popped up?
What?
Guess.
It's Dragon Ball.
Your Name! Frickin' Google, listening to our
Is it really?
podcast. Yeah.
Wow. I'm telling you, man, it's really good. It's Ooh, man, it tugs at the heart. And
Okay.
So I'm a very restless person when it comes to like sitting. So when I watch a movie, I have to move around a lot. This movie, I pretty much stayed in the same place the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, it's really good. It's like glue your eyes to the screen good.
So, are you a fan of One Punch Man?
I've got a funny story about that. How I watched the last episode.
I know what you're
yeah. So
okay,
I am, but I haven't actually seen the whole thing.
Okay, I was just gonna ask. So, One Punch Man released their season 2 trailer, and it's getting a lot of backlash because it has a new director and new studio, and they changed the art. And I can't remember what right now, but one's like Microsoft Paint. It switched to or Microsoft something Studio. I don't even know what. And they switched to something else like 3D Studio something, and it looks a lot different.
Really?
And so people are kind of like hating on S2.
So I'm going to pull this up real quick and watch it because I saw that they released it, but I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really give anything away. It's just like people like, and this is...
It's just people talking.
Sugar Ball!
This doesn't look that different, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, I think it's more animated than the first season. That was a little more 2D. But again, I don't think it looks a lot different.
Sure. And then the last thing that I did this week is I started playing a new video game called Divinity Original Sin 2.
Great video game.
It is fantastic. If you don't know what this is, it is a traditional Western RPG.
Yep.
And it's basically Dungeons and Dragons as a video game.
Yes.
To the point where there's a narrator that actually narrates what's going on around you. It is fantastic. If you're into D&D, try it. If you're thinking about getting into D&D, maybe also try it because
if you're just like RPGs. I mean, your choices affect what you make your own squad. Yeah.
It's really good. It's very deep. I will say I wasn't sure if I was going to like it up front because, I mean, I'd heard great things about it, but it's a 4-person squad and you can mess with all of them, like customize them all. And I didn't like that aspect when I tried Dragon Age Inquisition. But this one is very different. I'm like 6 or 7 hours in, fantastically written. Everything is great about it. Highly, highly, highly recommend that as well.
As do I. You get a second.
Awesome. All right, Zach, you got anything else?
I was going to say, who else recommends it?
Taylor Poole.
Taylor Poole. He did our intro music. He's a man. He's a guy. He, unfortunately, was snapped in the snapping. So he's dead right now. But he is coming back, hopefully. And when he does, check out his website at taylorpoolemusic.com.
Also, please check out our friends over at CNC Power Hour, where they stream Magic the Gathering and video games throughout the week. That is on Twitch, and they're pretty cool people.
And rate us 5-star, or you will get snapped as well.
Also, check out our website, where you can find all of the episodes, including this one, and you can share it with all of your friends. It's a pretty great place.
Yeah!
Thanks for listening to 'Cause We're Nerds. Stay up to date with all the nerdy news and podcast drops by following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also leave us comments and feedback at cuzwerenerds@gmail.com. That's CUZWERENERDS@gmail.com. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, we would love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We'll see you next week, and as always, stay nerdy.
You went for the long,
My throat hurts so bad.
Does it, Caleb?
So much talking.
Well, maybe you should take a cough drop and get better.
Yeah, I'm gonna go sit in the living room and not talk to my wife.
Well, I just do that when I'm not sick.
Oh,
just kidding.
Interesting.
Just kidding.
But he's not.
But I'm not. No, but I am. She'd kill me. If I'm not back next podcast, it's because Michaela did it.
Next podcast or like 2 weeks?
Both.
All right, guys. See you.
Bye.